This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
Hello, Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, some old acquaintances we know would be best forgotten, especially in a year that began with a terror incident, but was also a year of tidying the city for a Super Bowl, electing a new mayor for the city of New Orleans, and even frolicking in more snow than any of us had ever experienced. We'll be looking at some of the top stories from 2025 in business and crime, politics, and even a few wildcard stories. Joining us are our Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Missy Wilkinson, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, Robert Collins, political analyst for WVUE Fox 8 and Dillard University Urban Studies professor, and Tony McAuley, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. And we go over to Missy first because, as always with each year, there are some major crime stories that you guys are covering. And so each of you all, for these different categories, you've selected the 5 type stories. We'll start with Missy first with the crime stories.
Yes, lots of those. And amazingly, they were not all bad crime stories. We had some positive news this year. But in the 5th place for the biggest crime story was the disappearance of Brian Vasquez, who was the 12-year-old nonverbal boy who went missing out of a New Orleans East home this past August. This boy's disappearance really sparked headlines pretty much everywhere, and everybody became so invested in his disappearance and his plight. It became an international search with the Cajun Navy and even Mexican nonprofits lending a hand. I think you also were part of the search at some point, Tony. So it was huge. And as it unfolded, it became more and more horrific as the details emerged. He was eventually found drowned in a lagoon, and he had been consumed partially by alligators. But the real nightmarish scenario was the fact that he was not actually autistic. He had actually suffered a traumatic brain injury as an infant at the hands of his mother, who had been convicted on this. And a homicide investigation opened, NOPD opened one, and she is currently being held without bond as she awaits charges on manslaughter. Negligent homicide.
Yeah, just such a tragic story.
Yeah.
So sad. And
yeah.
The young man found in the lagoon, as you said, blunt force trauma caused by an alligator. They found to be the cause of death. Okay, number 4.
Yes, so number 4 was a definitely more positive story. It is the end of the NOPD's federal consent decree. So after 12 years under federal oversight, the NOPD was finally deemed constitutional and compliant with the terms of the 492-point sprawling consent reform, and a federal judge released it from oversight last month. So truly, we have seen a transformed department. All the policy has been rewritten, and more importantly, the culture has really changed at NOPD, and they are really now leaders in police reform. And it's a long time coming. There's still a lot of calls for community oversight, but overall, I think it's a real cause for New Orleans to celebrate and NOPD to celebrate.
And also, it's now a cost savings, too, because it was expensive for the city to be under that decree.
It was.
Okay, let's take a look at number 3 now.
Yes, so number 3 is also really great news. We continue to see crime drop in a historic measure. So right now, we're around 130 homicides, which isn't, great. You don't want to see any, but it's about half where we were in 2022 when we were when New Orleans was the homicide capital for the country. So we've seen precipitous declines every year, and not just in murders, but in all categories of violent crime. And that is following a nationwide trend, but you see it more starkly here in New Orleans than other places. And, people credit that to our federal partnerships, our very strategic and focused policing, and, just some of our community efforts to really, help people and in a targeted way. So it's been wonderful to see these murders and every other kind of category of crime come down.
Really, because we've seen citizen groups come together, nonprofit groups also working together, business groups to bring this crime rate down. So it definitely has been a community-wide effort.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's take a look now at number 2.
Yes, so number 2 is less of a feel-good story. The Orleans Parish Prison jailbreak, which unfolded in the early hours of May 16th this year. 10 inmates famously sneaked out of their cell block through a hole behind the toilet, left plenty of clever messages and scrawlings behind, and it took months to recapture, with the last inmate being found in Georgia in October, and that was Derek Groves, and he was just actually sentenced last week on his murder counts, and he's going to do 2 life sentences. So
that definitely was a national story also, because it was a major jailbreak with a video where you could see a gang of prisoners, jumping off the loading dock and heading out to freedom for a while, at any rate.
It was wild.
And also the message that had been left on the wall, too easy.
Yes. Instant meme there.
T.O. Easy. All right, number 1 for you.
Okay, so number 1, the Bourbon Street terrorist attack, where, such a grave and horrible way to start the year. 3:15 or so in the morning on New Year's Eve, Shamsud Jabbar, a ISIS aligned terrorist, drove down Bourbon Street in a Ford 150, killed 14 revelers, injured about 57, and really shook New Orleans' sense of safety and rewrote our approach to public safety in the French Quarter in just seconds. And I think that especially as we approach the year anniversary, a lot of people are feeling it. And it's just something that will continue to affect us for a very, very long time.
Including how to protect Bourbon Street. I mean, there's still discussions now, should there be permanent blockades? Definitely, we saw as a result of that really beefed up enforcement, because we had the Super Bowl here and Mardi Gras. It definitely was just such a shock and such a tragedy for all of those families who lost loved ones, and of course people were injured also.
I remember on New Year's Day that people, if they go to parties, they go around as they routinely do, they see people and they say, Happy New Year. So we're all telling each other Happy New Year, knowing that earlier to that day, 14 people had been killed in a terrorist incident. So it was an ominous beginning. But we got to say the police department acted quickly and did a good job on how they handled it.
Yeah, absolutely heroically. Several police officers were injured, but they did manage to, neutralize the threat, as they said, extremely swiftly and prevent further death and further injury.
Because don't forget about the bombs that were planted, too, in 2 different locations. And so, yes, they were able to neutralize the situation fairly quickly. Otherwise, it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yes.
And it's certainly not anything we ever want to see repeated again. But it does have long-term repercussions on the city and public safety, no doubt about that.
That film footage of those prisoners escaping was something that was really just compelling, just seeing one going after the other, That went nationwide, and it just showed the severity of it. And it certainly looked bad for the jail system. I mean, it seems like they were leaving at will.
Yes, and probably the nail in the coffin for Sheriff Hudson.
Yeah, it definitely impacted her in her re-election bid. All right, Missy, thanks so much. We're going to go over to Robert right now. And Robert, of course, all year long you've been talking politics, so I don't know how you came up with the 5 top politics.
It was hard. It was hard because there was a lot of political news because it was an election year.
Yeah,
of course.
absolutely. So let's see what you made your list.
So number 5, I'm saying City Council asserting independence from the mayor. During this year, the City Council has overridden mayoral vetoes 4 times, and they're about to override it for a 5th time probably this week. They overrode her veto on a $20 million appropriation to Charity Hospital. Then there was the WYES contract. There was a disagreement with the mayor over who should get the WYES contract. They wanted to keep the current contractor in the French Quarter. They overrode her veto on that. They overrode her veto on city attorney independence. The city attorney's office is going to be more independent now. The mayor can only fire the city attorney with the city council can override the mayor's firing of the city attorney with 5 votes. And they also overrode the mayor on a $5 million appropriation to LSU for downtown development. Just this past week, the mayor vetoed the city council's current budget, and I comfortably predict that the city council is going to override that veto also. So basically, the city council has totally asserted their independence over the mayor, and they have the votes to do it.
Right.
So,
next up?
Number 4, Catahoula Crunch, the Catahoula Crunch immigration rates. What's interesting about Catahoula Crunch from a political standpoint is that if you look at the polling, where you stand on it is primarily predicted by your political affiliation. 80% of Republicans support it, say it's a good thing. 80% of Democrats oppose it and say it's a bad thing. And so, of course, the governor and the attorney general, being Republicans, they support it. The mayor, the mayor-elect, and all of the city council oppose it because, and so basically, both of those groups are taking safe political positions because that's what their voters want them to do. Okay, moving on, the city budget deficit. So this is, of course, going to be a continuing story. The city was facing a $222 million budget deficit going into this year. Now, the city charter requires the city council to submit a balanced budget by December 1st, which they did through a series of furloughs and in service cuts, et cetera. They have balanced the budget. The mayor vetoed the city council's budget, so I predict that they are going to the city council is going to override the mayor once again, and so the $1.6 billion budget that is proposed is going to be the budget that's going to last. But of course, it's something the new mayor is going to have to deal with as she comes in. Okay, so number two, the indictment of Mayor Cantrell. So of course, the mayor was indicted for using taxpayer money, taxpayer property, taxpayer resources, allegedly to carry on an affair with her New Orleans police officer bodyguard, and then lying about it to a grand jury. So that trial is currently slated to begin in October of 2026, unless some sort of deal is cut with the feds before then, and I think there's a possibility that there might be. And of course, my number one story is the election of Helena Moreno as mayor of the city of New Orleans, winning with 54% of the vote in the first primary, second female mayor of the city, first Hispanic mayor of the city. So of course that's taken up most of our, the municipal election year has basically taken up most of our news this year.
So our incoming mayor is coming from the council. She has been on council now for a while. And our CAO, also the new CAO that's going to be coming with the next administration, also a former council member. So how do you think council is going to get along with this administration? Well,
looking at the new council members that are coming in, they're allies with the mayor-elect, and she has a good relationship with them coming in. So, I think it'll be good. Now, generally speaking, in their first year, basically every mayor gets a honeymoon period. So I think I would argue this mayor would have gotten a honeymoon period regardless of who was on the council, who was not on the council. So she's going to get a honeymoon period, and I believe the council will go along with her for the first year, and then we'll see how the relationship develops after that. It's going to be a rocky first year simply because of the budget deficit and the amount of cuts she had to make. She said there's going to be furloughs, there's going to be layoffs, not of civil servants, but of the political appointees. She's reducing the number of political appointees that answer to her. So she's going to have to make some tough decisions in her first year to get the budget correct, and I believe the city council will go along with her.
If you look at many of the previous mayors, Latoya Cantrell, Ray Nagin, the Morrell, they weren't from the council. And so here you have someone who was sitting right alongside with them, right there. Well, so I think the potential for a good relationship is much higher.
Latoya was on the council, though. Latoya was on council, was she not?
That's right.
She was. Yeah, she was a district council.
I guess I'm thinking of at-large.
Yeah, but Helena was an at-large council member, so she's already elected citywide twice before the mayor's race.
Yeah, well, they have a year before them, that's for sure. Yeah. They definitely are looking at some budget problems. Okay, Robert, thanks a lot. Tony, your turn now. Business. A lot of good, the paper's always full of business stories, which I guess is really good for the city's economy and also keeps you busy. So what are your 5?
Yeah, and business is such a broad category. But the way I've looked at it is the first one is an omnibus category, which is Trump 2.0, I've called it, because when a new administration comes in, it's always a super influential on what's going to happen in the economy at large. So we're thinking about things like affordability and interest rates for mortgage payments and all those kinds of things that set the overall tone. And there's been a lot of headwinds, as we know, on that front. Interest rates have been sticky. Inflation's been sticky. Those two are related, of course. But the aspects that I'm focused on, particularly, though, that have relevance for us, I'm looking at two things: the tariffs, of course, and we've talked about that on this show before. There was always that question of whether or not there was some genius mystery strategy behind these wacky, this wacky policy. I mean, most experts call it that. And that's yet to show itself. It's the word I've used in the list that I sent you for the impact of that is disruptive. We haven't seen, for example, here any big drop off in the overall volumes of trade that we see, and of course we're by some measures the largest port in the overall port, the Lower Mississippi 5 ports in the country. But we're not a big importer, we're a much bigger exporter, and we're very energy related. So the reason I use the word disruptive there is we're going to have to wait to see the impact, China put retaliatory tariffs on LNG, liquefied natural gas, which is a huge project here, cumulative project here, where we've got tens of billions going into it. So if that were to have an impact on the exports coming out of here down the road, like a couple, those are very long contracts. So number two.
Let's get on to your next one. Actually, it's number 4.
Sorry, the other one on that, if I could just very briefly say, and I won't go into it too much, it's probably pretty obvious, is the immigration policy. We've had a tripling in our Hispanic population. They're the growing population. We're in a falling population metro area, and the impact is we've written about a lot of stories about restaurants and that, the construction industry, and so on. So. My number.
Now the hospitality.
The hospitality, yeah. So we started the year with some good numbers coming off last year, where we're back to pre-pandemic levels, and there was a lot of optimism about the outlook, but it really tailed off through the year for a whole number of things. The economic headwinds that I mentioned before. We had a rather lackluster Essence Fest for various reasons. International travel is impacted by immigration policies, amongst other things. And so, when we got through the year, the numbers were looking not so healthy. And then some of the stories that I've reported late in the year is about the sales of hotel properties as an indication of the health of the sector, which the Virgin Hotel, which was built 4 years ago for $80 million, is on the market for half that price, and several other hotels at deep discounts. So we want to kind of, where people are talking about a more optimistic forecast over the next couple of years, but we have to kind of keep an eye on that because it's our biggest industry still.
Okay, let me get to a couple here now on your list too, and that's 3 and 2, sort of heading down. That's Hyundai Steel Company and the Metadata Farm. Take a look at that. So tell us there. I mean, that's some really big business coming to the state.
Yeah, those are big industrial wins, and they have an impact statewide. So the Hyundai $5.8 billion going to create 1,300 direct jobs, 4,500 indirect jobs. It also then we want to see what impact it has on this the Riverplex, this big industrial project where it's up there near Baton Rouge, where it's going to be built. And it's the Hyundai's first steel plant to supply its auto plants, the first steel plant in North America to supply all of it. So it's the kind of thing the kind of win that the LED and everybody's been looking for. And also, just very briefly, it was a cooperation, the first of the cooperation deals between the 5 ports, whereby Port of South Louisiana is going to take over and run it, invest in it, and so on. So it's the new type of approach that the ports have been talking about for a couple of years now.
And then the Metadata Farm.
Metadata Farm is very important in so many ways. It's a $10 billion project. It's some of the big questions there are, it's relatively small number of jobs, 500 jobs, huge impact upward in Richland Parish where it's being built. But it has statewide implications because there's huge investment required by Entergy to power it. Those things, it's going to require more, like twice the power that we require to power New Orleans.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions about the impact that'll have on ratepayers and so on.
Okay, let's get to your number 1 and got to wrap this up kind of quickly.
Yeah. The Super Bowl was, it was a huge event in its own right, of course. The economic impact estimated to be $1.25 billion. Those numbers are always a little bit in dispute. But what was really important about that was what preceded it, which was that the governor stepped in and appointed a infrastructure czar because he was worried that we weren't going to have the city in shape for the influx of visitors, but more importantly, the eyes of the world on the city. And so there was that mad dash to improve the city. And at the end of the year, we've got incoming Mayor Helena Moreno referencing that and saying we need to do the Super Bowl program going forward as a permanent fix for the city.
Because the city did look good during that time. It definitely was a good presentation
on the surface.
All right, Tony, thanks a lot. E, we're going to wrap it up with you with those wild card stories.
Yeah, okay, well, number 5, this was when the beginning of the train service, the train between New Orleans and Mobile, the Mardi Gras service they call. There's been that train before between New Orleans and Mobile, but it never lasted. But everyone seems to be behind this, including the states, which would be Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. The railroad system is, and it seems like a good idea. And the ridership has been very high, surprisingly high. Unfortunately, there's been a couple of tragic accidents in Mississippi, not due to the train, but more because of the road system. And so I know there's going to be a lot of effort on fixing that, but to get that done. But also, I think it's going to inspire a lot of more short-run trains, because there's talk about doing into Baton Rouge, and there's talk about one from Dallas to Baton Rouge, and so this might inspire that. Number 4, remember the day of the snow. All of us who've lived here all our life have seen days when there was snow, but never snow like this. I mean, never when there was snow piled up so high and for so long. I think for most of us, we said, well, this is what snow is really like. I mean, the big thing. And it was really a major event, a strike event.
It is really white.
Weren't you all surprised?
It's really pretty.
I mean, we've always had like a light blanket that would last maybe a day, and now this was it. This was it. And
it was lovely. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Number 3 was the whole situation with UNO. UNO's been on the ropes, as have been a lot of universities with declining enrollment. Then toward the end of the year, and you saw a couple of legislators got involved, and to put UNO back under the LSU system. LSU people are eager. Everybody seems to be eager, and this could be the one thing that could save UNO. And they still got to work out all the final details, but that could be an encouraging thing. I'll put this in number 2. It's really hard story to classify, but it's just an interesting story. And this was the whole situation about the new pope. Here, all of a sudden, first of all, never been the Pope in the United States, and one day we find out a Pope in the United States, and later that day, hey, this Pope's got New Orleans roots. And then a little bit later, there's discussion about the whole Creole culture in New Orleans. I thought that was just a wonderful discussion to have, because people have heard about that in New Orleans, and you can hear about the mixture of the cultures, and then the Pope with this. And I just thought it was just a really nice story, and I hope it just does a lot more to generate more discussion about that and mixed cultures, that kind of thing. And then maybe the Pope will come one day. And number 1 is really a non-story, and the non-story is that there was no tropical event. If you remember, as the hurricane season approached, they were talking about it was going to be a major hurricane, it's going to be a season, a lot of things, and nothing happened. It was really quiet, and so that really affects a lot of everything else.
I think we should all be knocking on wood here at this table right now, too, that we continue to have silent tropical seasons, because this was really a reprieve that we all needed, even in terms of insurance, not to mention just the anxiety of having to go through a storm. Definitely. Okay, your list of wild card stories. Let me see, which one is my favorite? I really love the Pope story too. I think that is just something, as you said, it just really did put. It's certainly a national focus, if not an international focus, on our Creole culture.
It's a counterweight to the other Catholic Church story in the city this year, which was wrapping up that terribly long bankruptcy case.
You're right.
Over the child abuse scandal.
Okay, now I want to go around the table with you all, and if you could just select out of your given categories the 2 people that stand out most to you.
Well, one that comes to mind is Gail Benson. How important she is. I mean, just enormous. I mean, one, she could say, I'm not interested in these franchises, let's sell them. I mean, she's the one that's keeping New Orleans a professional city, but also all the charitable things, the tie-in with cancer, all the things that she supports. She's really become just a really important person in the city. On the I think it's very impressive that at national level politics, they may not always agree with their politics, but the fact that the Speaker of the House, the House Majority Leader, and the Supreme Court member are all from Louisiana.
Right.
And I just think that's impressive that we fit that that type of leadership.
And two of them grew up in Metairie.
Yeah.
Yep,
Grew up in
absolutely.
Metairie.
You know, I believe both
I had this
St.
fantasy
Catherine and
that at
Siena
some point when
parishioners.
Steve Scalise was a little kid and Amy Coney Barrett was a little girl, that they were at the Metairie snowball stand at the same time and never knew what would happen one day.
Right, all right, E, thanks. Missy, over to you.
So two of my people are also underpinning the big stories, and one is Detective James Fife, who you may have heard, he's on a crazy streak of solving homicides for the NOPD. I saw the FIFO-meter at NOPD headquarters that kind of has a hash mark for everyone he clears. It was more than 20 the last time I saw it.
Wow.
I think I saw him at a homicide scene in Fairgrounds yesterday, and that homicide is solved now. So he's doing amazing work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yes, the second one is Troop NOLA Captain Rodney Hyatt. So Troop NOLA has done incredible work for the nearly 2 years that they've been here, but last year really tested their mettle. They took such a huge role in addressing the terrorist attack and the jailbreak, and he was right at the forefront on all of those things.
And thanks to them, both of them. Robert.
Yeah, I didn't want to pick the easy choices, the mayor-elect. So my choices are Calvin Duncan, great redemption story, 28 years in Angola, went on to become a lawyer and defeated basically the entire New Orleans political establishment to win clerk of criminal court race. And then Joe Giarrusso served 8 years as a district councilman. He said he was getting out of politics to go make some money with a law firm, and the mayor-elect convinced him to stay in government. He's going to be the chief administrative officer, the second most powerful position in city government.
So he was dragged right back.
Dragged back in.
Right. Okay, Tony, wrap it up with you real quick.
I'm going to harken back to the Super Bowl and say Michael Hecht, who was picked by Governor Landry to be his infrastructure czar. In other words, get it done or we won't be ready for Super Bowl. So that success has got him the dubious privilege of being tapped by the governor to make sure that the biggest industrial project in the state, the Louisiana International Terminal, gets built over in St. Bernard Parish. And my second person is someone that you probably haven't heard of, is Brian Gibbs. He's you see his name on a lot of construction sites. He just got the NSA Apartments complex, the old Navy base, fully financed to get going. That's one of these major eyesores in the city.
In the Bywater,
and it's going to be now a $300 million affordable housing and technology center if it all happens, which hopefully it will. And those are the kind of projects that the city keeps talking about needing to do and have proved very elusive for many years. So.
All right, guys, thanks so much. Great stories that you highlighted for us. Thanks for being here. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
Informed Sources is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
We count on Informed Sources to continue the discussion on important local issues.
It's where our top journalists discuss stories they've covered.
Stay informed with Informed Sources.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.